Good morning, Year 9. It's Mr. Walter speaking, and we are going to be starting our fourth lesson on the suffrage movement today. Quick reminder of our inquiry question. Was violence the driving force behind women gaining the vote? It's all about what caused women to gain the vote. Now, bit of a different activity to start us, and it's using the three key new words that we're going to be using this inquiry. And that is root, accelerator, and trigger. And these are different words to describe different causes. If you've forgotten what they mean, I'm going to look at them now. Pause the video if you need to spend more time reading about the word. So root, and if you look at the top right image, it's the foundations or the basic origin of something. Accelerated, it's something that speeds up an event. And triggered. An event that triggered something is the lighting a fuse, okay, the last thing, the final thing that finally meant it happened. Back to the activity. We've got three completely different random events. I want you to think, what would be the root cause, the origins? What would be the accelerator? What would be the trigger of that event happening? Pause it and have a think for yourself. I'm going to talk through maybe one of them. Let's say you not doing your homework. We've got a root, an accelerator, and a trigger. Well, the root, the oldest cause, maybe this was that you've never liked homework and you've never got into the habit of doing it. So that's always going on. It's been going on since the start of your school career. Accelerator, maybe if you say what accelerated this, maybe that you didn't really understand the topic that you were learning about. So you've been studying this topic since start of January, and you didn't really understand it, so therefore you didn't do it. Trigger, what's the final thing that meant you didn't do it? Well, perhaps you had set aside time to do it on the night before, and that night you ended up going to football training instead. So you couldn't do your homework because you were playing football. So we've got a root, an accelerator, and a trigger. Hopefully you came up with even better ones for these and more interesting ones. Now, quick retrieval quiz. I want you to write these down at home just on a bit of paper to remind yourself of the work from the last few lessons. I'm going to skip through them. I want you to pause the video when they're all up and see if you can answer them all. So pause the video now. Right, back into what we've studied already. Well, we looked at the suffragists first. Key person here was Millicent Fawcett, okay, and they were the National Union of Women's Suffrage Society. Key here was that they were about peaceful protest. They were about petitions, demonstrations, and they tried to convince people that women were intelligent, responsible, and therefore should gain the vote. And these came before the suffragettes. Crucially, though, they were looking at the vote for middle-class women, so wealthier women who owned homes, not all women. Next up came the suffragettes. Key person here was Emmeline Pankhurst. She was leader, and this was in the early 1900s. Their motto, deeds, not words. It's all about action, not just saying something. So they were seen as more militant, more at times violent and aggressive, and more demanding that women gain the vote. So they did things like handcuff themselves to poles or posts or gates of Parliament, things like that. Smashed windows, etc. Today, we're thinking about the next stage, and that is World War I. What impact did it have on women's right to vote? So you can write this down if you're doing it in your book, and you've got a source in front of you. I want you to pause the video and have a go at answering these three questions. I'm going to talk you through them now. So 3 things we can see. Well, for starters, we've got a woman in the whole middle of the picture, so it's all about her. She's also in sort of overalls. Looks like they're sort of workers' overalls, or but that's in a factory or something else industrial. got a plane in one hand, holding it up the hand. We've got some kind of weapon, missile, bomb in the other hand, and she's again holding them up. And it says here at the bottom, for every fighter, a woman worker. Right. So if it's go on to question 2, what's it suggesting? Well, it's suggesting that women are actually behind the fighter planes, behind the men at war. And without them holding them up, the men would not be able to compete in war, and Britain would not win the war. So women are making the planes, making the weapons, and are therefore fundamental for Britain winning the war. Your task today. There is a little video that your teacher will be posting. You also have posted this sheet, this document. There are 8 questions on it. You need to work your way through all 8 questions to learn about World War I and its impact on women gaining the vote. Challenge. When you've done all that, why do you think some suffragettes disagreed with Emmeline Pankhurst's strategy during the war? So that's quite a hard question. Definitely challenge yourself with it. And then an extension. There will be an article posted as well for you to have a look at online. I want you to read that article. When you've read it, I want you to create a poster or flyer or leaflet, whatever you prefer, that showcases or explains the role of women during the war. But one final thing afterwards. So, vote was granted after World War I to women. Yet this is actually who it was granted to. If you're looking at women, 8.5 million women out of a total population of 24.5 million women actually gained the vote. And that is because it was not granted to all women. In your research, you should see who it was actually granted to. I want to think, what does that actually suggest about women, the women's vote, but also about what World War I enabled women to achieve at this time? That's something for you to be thinking about. And finally, you will also be sent a quiz exit pass question. One question on Microsoft Forms. It will be about whether World War I was the root cause, an accelerator, or the trigger of women gaining the vote. I want you to write that down type it into Google Forms and submit it so your teacher can see what your thoughts are. Some sentence starters if you want it to help you. And yeah, it's thinking, was it the foundations? Did it help speed up the process, or did it finally trigger women gaining the vote? Good luck, and we're looking forward to seeing all your responses.